Hi, I'm Barbecue Brian from the House of Q, and I want to share with you a recipe that I love sharing with all my friends and family. I call it Barbecue Brian's Pork and Beans. So the first step in cooking Barbecue Brian's Pork and Beans is to prepare the pork. And right in front of me is a boneless pork butt. But you don't want to cook it whole. What you want to do is kind of butterfly roll it out so it's nice and thin, about an inch thick. So what you want to do is take your knife, cut, and with your other hand, roll back the pork, creating a roll or a flattening of the pork butt so it's nice and even. The next layer of flavor is using some slow smoke gold barbecue sauce and mustard from House of Q and some seasoning. I'm going to start on the back side. It doesn't really make all that much of a difference when you're cooking this, but that's where I like starting. So I'll turn over my pork butt, I'll take a jar of mustard, pour some on out of the jar, and smear that all over the pork butt. You can use regular mustard, but this one will make it extra tasty. Once the mustard is smeared all over, we're going to add a coating, a generous coating of rub. And the reason why I emphasize the generous amount is we're going to make these nice little nuggets of pork, and every little piece of that pork we want some seasoning on there. So it's going to look a little ridiculous maybe for the volume of seasoning I'm putting on here, but it's for a reason. I'm using House of Q's. I created this one, the house rub. It's got some awesome flavor, nice balance, a little bit of heat, not so much, but just tastes great. We'll turn over the pork butt, pack in some of that rub still onto the pieces, pour on some more mustard, the slow smoke gold mustard sauce, smear it around, and then more rub. For this pork and beans recipe, I'm going to cook on the Yoder Smoker's YS1500. It's a pellet smoker, which is one that I use personally. I've won a bazillion awards at barbecue competitions on this exact model, including the best ribs in the world at the World Food Championships. I know this one intimately, and I want to share this recipe with you on this cooker. I'm going to open the lid and put the pork butt on the top rack. I'm going to pull it out a little bit evenly so it's all over the top. And then we're going to put our beans on the bottom rack. I put the pork on the top rack because as I cook that pork, we've got our controller set at about 350 degrees. It's going to cook fairly quickly, but as that pork cooks, it's going to start to soften all that nice fatty texture that's there and drip into our beans. We've got a skillet that's nice and hot. We're going to add in some oil and a diced onion, a whole diced onion. We're going to soften the onions. We really don't want to brown them, but that's okay. Stir this around so they're all coated in oil, and then wait till they're nice and soft to the next step. So once our onions have started to soften and saute in our skillet right here, we're going to add some more flavor. Let me go back to the beans first though. I'm using canned beans. I like putting them in a strainer and draining off all the liquid that's in the can, even using some water to rinse them off. I want my own flavor that's in there. We're going to put in first the house rub. A lid of a large spice jar, just like this, is 3 tablespoons of rub. In it goes into the onions. Next, about 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire, about a cup of molasses, and the last one here, well, second to last, about a cup of apple butter barbecue sauce. That'll give some nice sweet flavor. Apple and pork will be so awesome with the pork and beans. If you want something a little spicy, go with a spicier sauce like the sugar and spice. And lastly, the tomato paste. This is a 6-ounce can of tomato paste, and we'll mix this all up, get it nice and warm, and then add the beans. While our sauce is getting nice and warm, we're going to take our drained and strained beans right here and transfer them to a larger tray, just like this hotel pan or extra large aluminum foil tray. Into the pan, mix them all around. Today we're going to use a mixture of brown and black beans. So our beans are nicely mixed. We're going to take our skillet of our sauces, pour that over top of the beans, again mix it all together, and then we'll transfer the whole tray over to the smoker. We're going to take our tray of beans and put it on the lower rack, right below the pork that's on the top rack. So as the pork cooks, it'll drip right into the pan. Close the lid and keep cooking at 350 degrees. It's been a couple of hours for our pork and beans on the smoker, and it's time to check and see how well that pork is going on the smoker. So let's go in here. Let's see what's going on. So using your thermometer, what you want to do is check your pork for temperature. Anywhere around 150 to 160 degrees is absolutely perfect. That side, 150, right there, 155, and 160 on this end. Our pork is perfect at this point. The beans are looking fantastic at this point. As the pork has been cooking, it's been dripping into the beans. I'm gonna stir this around, make sure they're not getting too dry. There's lots of moisture and sauce on the beans. These two are also ready to go. To bring this dish all together, we've got our pork, we've got our beans right here, and we'll finish it up. I'll show you how we're gonna do this, but we gotta start with the pork right here, and we're gonna cube it up into little pieces. If you do this like little chunks of pork, it's gonna be so fantastic, and it's almost could possibly be, one might describe, more pork than beans. Something tells me you might be okay with that. So I've got my big slicing knife here. I'll cut off a few slices of pork. I'll turn it the other way, each of these pieces, and cube this up. We've got some beautiful crust on the outside and some great looking flavor. So to pull this all together, I've chosen a nice great big bread bowl right here. I'm gonna take a handful of the chunks of pork, place that into the bowl, and then on top of that, a nice scoop of the beans. This is what I call pork and beans. It's looking saucy, and as I've cooked this, if I decided to add a little bit more moisture, so like some chicken stock, some beef stock, or even some more barbecue sauce, this is gonna be a perfect dish of pork and beans. This looks perfect to me. I love the volume of sauce. The pork looks fantastic. I'm gonna take a bite. Oh, the apple butter works perfect. The beans, between the black and the brown, Mom's gonna love this one. I gotta give her a phone call, have her come over. You guys gotta make this. This is a fun recipe, and I hope you get a chance to make this or your variation of it on your Yoder smokers and share it with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about these outdoor cookers, visit yodersmokers.com.